Candace Collins Jordan is one of the most famous playmates in the history of Playboy magazine. She worked at Playboy bunny clubs in St. Louis and Chicago in the 70s, covered Playboy many times, and lived in the Playboy mansion. Almost half a century later, one might expect her to hang up her bunny ears and retire from modeling. But Jordan grabbed headlines when she opted to pose nude for the magazine at the ripe old age of 65. She says it was a thrill in every way to return to the magazine at age 65, 40 years after she first posed in its pages. Jordan first joined the Playboy family as a bunny in 1973 and went on to cover the magazine 9 times in all, even moving into the mansion with Hugh Hefner for a period. Then late last year, she was invited back for a special shoot spotlighting playmates of every age. And she writes for the Huffington Post, "It was such a joy that she hopes to come back again when she's 80. All this press is good news for Jordan, who had an extremely challenging childhood. In her own words, "My childhood sort of compelled me to leave my hometown, as my stepfather was a town drunk, and a mean one at that. I remember spending hours studying in my bedroom closet, hiding as he rampaged throughout the house. But that didn't prevent Jordan from becoming the valedictorian of her class and pursuing a life outside of her small conservative town in Illinois. According to her, Playboy gave me the perfect out." In 1974, she moved to Chicago, where Playboy was headquartered, and was quickly recognized as one of the most talented models in the business. She made the cover 9 different times and was named Playmate of the Year in 1979. And fortunately, her parents and community were extremely understanding, even though she came from a relatively conservative area. Apparently, her father even said if they would have paid me what they paid her, I would have done poses myself. Jordan still remembers her first shoot fondly. She recalls, "Oddly enough, I had no qualms about posing nude. I felt comfortable in my own skin, and I guess I always have. I also trusted Playboy not to portray me in a bad light." Apparently, she got an email requesting her return to the beloved magazine in 2019 as she and her husband were visiting Dollywood Park in Tennessee. On the vacation, she was gorging on fried foods and mentions that the timing was not perfect waist-wise, but this was an honor I couldn't refuse. "I immediately began to prepare for the shoot, and by the time I flew to LA, I was ready and excited." So Jordan began the process once again, now 40 years after her first centerfold. Jordan says she knew she was in good hands with photographer Nadia Lee Cohen, who had a long history of diverse model photography and possessed an edgy style that enticed Jordan. Then she began the lengthy makeup process. She had long nails and eyelashes affixed, got a spray tan, and sorted through piles of lavish clothes and gaudy jewelry until she found something that suited her. They shot at a vintage house in Burbank, California, where a former swimming star had lived in the 40s and 50s. Jordan was pictured lounging on an orange shag carpet in orange panties and nothing else, shielding herself on top with her arm. In another shot, she sipped a martini by the pool in a strapless top. "I wanted to show women that beauty and sexuality have no limits," she told the magazine at the time. Jordan says doing this shoot was a thrill in every way, although in the beginning I was a little nervous, considering the time span between my first shoots and the fact that I would now be shooting with other playmates who were decades younger. Eventually, though, I realized I would be representing an age group that rarely gets this sort of recognition, so I embraced the opportunity wholeheartedly. Though her appearance in Playboy 40 years later was somewhat controversial, she has received overwhelming support for her decision. Of course, the world is changing, and many people claim that Playboy is a chauvinist magazine that objectifies its subjects. Jordan's response is this: "The present-day pinup is less concerned with how she appears before the male gaze than how she feels about herself. I have never once felt objectified, but rather liberated and empowered. No one put a gun to my head and made me pose. It was my decision, and I honestly thought this was one of the tenets of the feminist movement too, to be free to make your own choices." Overall, Jordan says she is so happy that Playboy came into her life. It got her out of her small town and into the thrills of big city Chicago at a young age. She met her husband in Chicago, and he is a huge proponent of her involvement with the magazine. In the end, it was extremely empowering for Jordan to model in her 20s, and it has been even more invigorating to model in her 60s. This reflects a new progressive direction for the magazine, and she was not even the oldest model involved in the shoot. Victoria Valentino was 77 years old when she appeared in the shoot, setting the record for the oldest model ever to appear in Playboy. One can only imagine that she felt empowered as well.